Okay, so I'm Stuart from the West of England Nature Partnership. I manage the partnership, and the partnership is for the West of England region, which is, if that's not familiar, Bristol, Bath, and surrounding areas. I'm going to be focusing in today on our work on a nature recovery network for the West of England. So that's, I'll describe later how we're delivering that in the region. So the vision for the partnership is a thriving and well-connected natural environment in the West of England that underpins a healthy and resilient society and economy. The two main streams of work we're focusing on are nature recovery, which I'll focus on today, and mainstreaming nature and health services in the kind of the mainstream health services, getting nature and health in there, and I won't speak about that today. I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but a bit of context on why we need a nature recovery network. So obviously we have facing long-term biodiversity decline in England and indeed in our region, and an ecological crisis. So for our regions, figures like 88% decline in lapwing between 87 and 98. We need to address this and adapt to the climate emergency. So in 2010, the Lawton Report, which many people will be familiar with, stated that wildlife was suffering from a lack of habitat of sufficient size and that was poorly connected. So we need bigger, better, more, and joined up habitat. And this feeds into the 25-year environment plan, which requires a nature recovery network for England. So in our region, we've developed a nature recovery network. This is the map of it. So it was done by a habitat-driven approach, and I'll describe the methodology in a couple of slides. So it looks at 3 habitat types: woodland, wetland, and grassland, which are priorities for our area. You can see here, green is woodland, red, orange is grassland, and blue is wetland. So it shows where existing habitat is, how they're connected, and where a strategic network is that we should focus habitat restoration, creation, enhancement in. It's very much a living map that can be updated when habitat data improves, and it's intended for strategic use. So it needs adding to with localized data if you're working on the ground. So the approach was called permeability mapping. So you go from your initial habitats that you've mapped, so the core habitat in this diagram, woodlands, high quality, and you look at the surrounding lands and assign different permeability scores to it. So you look at how species can travel through the landscape by applying dispersal distance and then weighting it by that cost of permeability. So urban areas are less permeable, for instance, for woodland than scrubland is. So this map I'm showing here is actually for grassland. The darker areas are core grassland, and the lighter area is showing how the landscape is permeable to grassland species. So you can see kind of corridors through which species are able to move, and areas in which the landscape isn't permeable to grassland species. So this map kind of zooms out and then shows how we go from that network modeling, and then you can kind of see this medium orange that's smoother. So that's a strategic network based on that modeling and local knowledge and designations. We're saying that's a network in which we should focus our efforts to restore habitat, create new habitat, and you have these gaps in connectivity, which are highlighted by the red dots. So that was a very quick overview of our methodology, and I want to also talk through how we're going from mapping. So the map was produced last year, published, agreed by the partnership, and moving on to delivery of the map. So I'm going to give a quick whistle-stop tour of some of the things we're working on to make that nature recovery network a reality. So one of the key elements in this is the West of England Joint Green Infrastructure Strategy. That's owned by the combined authority for the region and by the 4 local authorities. The aim is to secure investment in planning for green infrastructure similar to that for grey infrastructure, such as transport and houses, and enable a consistent approach to GI across the West of England, producing an action plan for partners and local authorities to follow. The Nature Recovery Network is embedded within this, and it forms one of the key pieces of evidence. So the Nature Recovery Network is to be used by partners to identify opportunities for ecological enhancement through their local plans and strategies, and it's included as one of the key 8 GI outcomes in this plan. One of the elements of the GI plan is also net gain. So biodiversity net gain, we're working on how we can incorporate the Nature Recovery Network into net gain through a multiplier, so that net gain offsets are targeted within the Nature Recovery Network, and especially within the connectivity gaps, and that needs to be fed through to local plans, obviously. So we're working with local authorities to achieve that. Another element of the GI plan that's come through is the need for a tree and woodland strategy for the West of England. So there's a lot of demand for tree planting at the moment, as many people are aware, but there's a need to get the right trees in the right places. So for instance, not to plant trees in connectivity gaps for the grassland network. So we're addressing that through a tree and woodland strategy for the West of England. And that's being built on the Forest of Avon plan that was agreed in the mid-noughties. So that's being updated and expanded to cover the whole West of England, and will identify areas for opportunities for tree planting, for woodland creation, and there will be principles embedded in that and how you go about tree planting, woodland creation to ensure the right tree in the right place and correct woodland management. Through all of this process, it's key that we're working with partners across the west of England. So that's not just local authorities and the partners on the WEMP board, which also includes, say, water companies and NGOs, but also organisations such as Highways England and Network Rail, who are working with to embed the Nature Recovery Network into their processes for management of their verges, so whether that's grassland or woodland informed by the Nature Recovery Network. And other key partners we're working with are the AONBs in our area, so the Mendips and the Cotswolds. So working how we embed the Nature Recovery Network into their plans for nature recovery, coming from the Colchester Declaration. Some people may be aware, but there's an increased focus on nature recovery in AONBs, and we need to embed our methodology into their plans and think about how we link the two areas. Another area we started thinking about now is agriculture. So how we embed the Nature Recovery Network into the environmental land management schemes coming out of post-Brexit agricultural policy. How can we prioritise agricultural management in certain ways according to the priorities that the Nature Recovery Network present, address those connectivity gaps and build habitat in the right places. We're also looking at pipelines of investable projects. So I've been kind of talking about how we embed the Nature Recovery Network into different actions and plans, but there's a need also to identify key strategic projects across the west of England that would make a big difference to Nature Recovery Network. So that might be, for instance, widespread wetland creation on the North Somerset levels of moors, which is a part of our area. And once we have those pipeline of projects, investable projects, we also need to start thinking about how we match demand through net gain, carbon offsetting, natural flood management for nature recovery, etc., with the supply of land. So for instance, Greater Manchester have an environment fund, and we want to start thinking about different mechanisms, how we can match that demand with supply. Thank you.